story of the centurion comes, and he's got a servant who's sick at home. So this centurion is a Roman citizen, so he is not a Jew, right? And so he's coming. He's an outsider, and he's coming to be healed. And Jesus kind of makes this great proclamation that he's not seen this much faith, in anyone in Israel, which is a pretty scandalous kind of comment to make, which is to say that this person who's not even Jewish has greater faith than any Jewish person in Israel, right? And to say that to the Jews at this time, it'd be kind of a pretty scandalous thing to say. It would be like a Muslim imam sort of saying, "Oh, this Jew has greater faith than any Muslim in Allah," or something like that, right? And I mean, you can imagine how Muslims would react to someone saying something like that, right? They would not be happy about it, right? So, I mean, that's probably the closest analogy I could give for us to kind of grasp a little bit of what this saying that Jesus is saying is. So, let's look at this man who's an example for us. He displays several key virtues. Two, I think, that are pretty remarkable. One, he has an incredible amount of humility, right? Of coming here. I mean, when Jesus says, "Oh, I will come to your house," the man sort of said, in his humility, says, "No, that's not necessary. You don't need to do that." He sort of feels unworthy to do that. The second thing, he displays his incredible amount of trust in Jesus, or trust in God. Like, he believes that God will do this just by a word, which I think is remarkable because, a lot of times people want the big, flashy miracle, right? They want all the signs, they want the commotion, they want something big, and so he doesn't want that. He trusts God enough that he can just say what he says, and it will happen. I guess there's a third virtue that this man displays, which is compassion, right? So he's here on whose behalf? His son's behalf? His daughter's behalf? Who's he here to get healing for? A servant, right? Some household servant of his. Someone, in terms of societal rank, quite far below him. And he's here to get the healing for his servant. So this centurion has several very impressive virtues that we could learn from. And what Jesus says after all this, after he says this exclamation of how he's impressed by this man's faith, then Jesus gives this sort of little saying, right, to teach everybody before he pronounces that this servant will be healed. He says, what? People from the east and the west, right, from far and wide, will come and sit down at the table of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the children of the kingdom of God will be cast into outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's a pretty radical thing to say. I mean, the children of the kingdom of God in this context are the Jewish people, right? But in a more universal meaning here, it's basically anybody who thinks they're in, right? Anybody who's like a church-going person, right? So for us, the children of the kingdom of God is us, right? And the people from far and wide are people who are not in the church or not coming. So what's the lesson here that Jesus gives? It's this. One, you should probably stop judging people because you're not a good judge of people's character. This centurion comes, and he's an outsider, right? He's one of these people that's coming from the east and the west, right, to sit down at the table of Abraham and Isaac. And all the people listening are the children of the kingdom of God who are going to be cast out. And he comes with all these virtues, and the tendency is for everyone to judge him as someone who's not a man of faith because he's not a Jewish person, right? He's not in the in-group, right? And so they're going to judge him of not being someone that is worth imitating, not being someone that's worth to be praised for their character. And so the great lesson here is that virtue often lies where you don't think it does. And that there are many people around us and in our lives that we interact with who possess far more virtue than us. That virtue and character and faith often lies in unexpected places and in unexpected people. And if we're going to be able to see that the way Jesus saw it, right, to see this person's faith, right, and all the virtue that they possess with that, if we're going to be able to see that, we have to be able to set aside, right, all of our sort of prejudices and preconceptions that we have of people. And so often in the gospel, Jesus tells us again and again basically this, right? Stop judging people, right? Because we walk, you know what we are? We're like these little, like, judging robots, right? That just go around judging everything and everybody all day long. And if you stop for a second and just start to listen to your own thoughts, you will realize how true this is. You know? We almost can't go by a minute without judging somebody or judging something else. In our mind, there's constantly this like ticking away, making small little judgments about everyone, and we have sort of this addiction, right, to measuring people up, putting them into boxes, right, putting some sort of stamp or label on them in some way, because why? Why do we do that? Because it makes us feel safe, right? Because it's a world that we then control in some way. And because, I mean, as sick as this is, but, you know, we're pretty sick. Putting other people down, right, makes us feel better. And so we do it all the time. And so the challenge is that we have to be incredibly intentional, right? We have to work very hard at kicking this bad habit of judging other people, of constantly measuring them up. And the reason we shouldn't be judging people, right, is because we do not possess neither the knowledge nor the character by which to justly judge other people. You and I don't have it, okay? We don't have it. And so if we judge, it's unjust. And it's usually tyrannical and oppressive when we do it to other people. It harms them, right? Because we are not fit to be in the judgment seat. But who is? God is. So leave the judging to God. It's a lot safer. Otherwise, you're going to go around hurting yourself and hurting a lot of other people. And the other thing is that you're not going to see that centurion in your life, right? You're not going to see other people of great virtue and character that you can learn from, that you can benefit from. So that's the lesson today. That virtue and character and faith often lies in unexpected places. And that we should not be quick to judge others, but to recognize that sometimes the person of faith comes from the east and the west to sit down at the table. And they're not necessarily the children of the kingdom of God. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to God.